Hey, what's up everybody? Rob Marzullo here, Ram Studio Comics. Welcome back. So in today's video, I want to show you how to draw a kind of a leaned over squatting leg pose. So this has been requested a few times now. I'm just finally getting around to it for you. So let's start by establishing a bit of a horizon line. So I'm just going to draw a line kind of through the middle. Just remember the horizon line is where you're looking in the scene. So it's basically where you're at level wise. So if you were squatting down or standing, in a regular average view, generally the horizon line's about the middle. If you're up on something high, it's going to be higher. If you're down a level or something like that, it's going to be lower. And then what happens is everything perspectively generally kind of goes up from there. Not always, like in a horizon line like this, you're going to get things that are both above and below. That's how you do like walking down a street. This would be your sidewalk or whatever. So your vanishing point's back there. So these are just basic rules of perspective that I want to brief you up on. It can help sometimes with these more complex poses. I think that you should always establish some kind of perspective as you go to draw. It's a bad habit to get into to just draw on a blank white canvas. So now with a pose like this, I'm going to just draw a character kind of sitting and occupying. I like to define the space that they're occupying. So what I'm going to do is just kind of draw, some kind of vanishing point like this. So this is our vanishing point. We've got a character occupying, a little bit of space, like something like this. And you could consider this a 2-point perspective and draw way off the canvas like that. You don't have to, but I just want a region of space where this character is going to reside within. I think it helps me to visualize where to place things. So now with leaned over poses or a squatting pose, these are tricky because the legs change shape so dramatically, right? So the first thing I think you want to do is establish where the pelvis is. So I'm just going to draw like this kind of pelvis shape, nothing too elaborate, just like that. So an oval, and a line. And you could perceive this as a bit of a V shape like that. So it just gives me a place to start from. It doesn't mean it's entirely correct. It doesn't have to be. Just you got to get some marks on the page to get rolling, right? So then from here I want to draw some lengths. Remember that the legs connect off to the side. So more like this. We can get into drawing all the bones and that, but we're not going to do that. We're just going to start here. And what we want to think about, we'll draw the first leg, which I like to draw things whenever I'm doing more complex foreshortened poses. I like to draw whatever's in front first, more defined. Okay, so I'm going to bring the knee up, and it looks like it's connecting to that other hip joint, but it's not. I'm just trying to perceive where this knee is going to go. Now, the tricky thing about this is that as it comes out towards camera, this side's going to be more abrupt, okay, and more stouty or whatever. It's just going to be a shorter, more abrupt line, and you got to always perceive these as curves, not straight lines. Keep that in mind as well. And then as the leg goes back, it bends and curves back. And then what we got to think about is balance. So generally when somebody's leaned over like this, they have to have a center of balance that holds them up. So you got to kind of align this stuff a little bit, even though it's all bendy, curvy, whatever. It's got to align a little bit and something about their balance. So if they're leaned over too far this way, you'll realize that you have to put an arm down here to counterbalance. Because if not, they just fall over because they got too much upper body weight leaned over. But if a person's leaned straight up, they can squat like this pretty effectively. So think about that balance as you go. Come down here, attach the ankle, and for feet, I just generally will go out, ball of the foot, toes. That's all that resembles to me, or what I'm thinking of. Now the reason why I drew this vanishing point over here is I want you to think about when we go to place this other leg, this is what you'll commonly see, and I make this mistake as well. People have pointed it out to me. I'll draw a leg and I'll make it maybe too short or in the wrong spot, or I don't know where to put it, and I go like maybe something like that. And obviously that doesn't make sense. It looks like the character is getting ready to fall over. I'm not going to draw the upper body mass, but you should be able to tell even at this stage that that character just wouldn't work in that position. So what has to happen is you have to start thinking about perspective. So if this foot is placed back here, and actually to tell you the truth, I probably need to bring this back even further. So I'm going to do that now, because this really needs to sit under the character to really hold up that weight. So let's try it back there a bit more. Let's tilt this, what this is going to be a foot. Again, I'm trying to build this up with the most primitive shapes or lines at this point. as I can so that I can really see into the work and I can kind of hedge off any bad decisions, basically. So I'll even start to adjust this. Remember to draw lightly so that you can adjust without erasing. That's another quick way to get down and dirty and get it done. So now we can think about perspective, and if these feet were aligned perfectly, which they don't have to be, they're probably not going to be, but we can draw these lines to the vanishing point and think about that. Same thing goes for the knee, so we can take these lines to the vanishing point and go, well, this could be, if this was a perfectly symmetrical pose, which generally the body's not, it would stand to reason that this knee shape can go anywhere in this region here. Now, generally, legs aren't perfectly symmetrical when they're lined up, but one thing I will tell you is that this leg, this length of this leg, upper leg here, is going to have to be longer than this side because of foreshortening on this side. So just keep that in mind. This one needs to stick out further to make it appear to make sense. And then we can bring this back. We can kind of use the angles we have here to kind of figure out where this might be. We can change the shape of the foot. We can change the orientation because of the pivot ability of it. But let's just go with something simple and start right here and see what we can come up with. So this gives us a bit of a starting point. I still think that the pelvis needs to be adjusted and tilted over. I think that the body would need to kind of come up this way to balance out with these legs. So I don't think that this looks like as much of a straight up pose. Probably could be, but it's probably going to depend how the rest of the body is balanced. So let's start here and let's go ahead and do this. Let's bring this up because, like I said, I'm not going to worry too much about the upper body mass. I just want to illustrate this portion for you. Okay, so now what I want to do is take this, soft erase it back, and I want to add in some form. So we've got our lengths established, but now we want some form to kind of check the work and check our perspective even further. So what I like to do is draw in cylinders, but you don't have to. I know I'll explain this on the channel, and some people are like, I just like going right to drawing. I don't like drawing cylinders. It throws me off. We've all got different ways to accomplish this stuff. But what I like about cylinders is it allows me to kind of check perspective one more time. So the front of the knee kind of boxes out a bit and it gets really large. Like I'll notice that in a lot of amateur drawings or whatever you consider amateur, I guess, but they'll make the knees really small. But you got to kind of compensate for the fact that both the lower knee and the upper portion of the leg combine and make it quite large. The upper part of the leg muscle rounds out quite a bit. And again, I'll attach this cylinder. So in primitive shapes, you could draw a box here, cylinder here, cylinder here. And this is the tricky part, is you really got to bring this pretty far down to have it look realistic, or whatever you're going for, I guess. But and then this part kind of curls over, but we're going to just bring that line over for now. The hips back here somewhere. You get kind of these little tiny wrinkles right there from the skin, but again, I want to fight the urge to detail. I want to get these cylinders in place and make it easier to visualize. And then I'll draw little circles here and here, or ovals, I guess, to kind of, again, paint that perspective. Really check that perspective and build some depth there. And then for the foot, I'll just attach a couple basic shapes. You could do a circle for the heel or oval for the heel, and then a wedge shape and another wedge shape, showing that part of the bend to the toes like that. And then over here, we're going to bring this out. And again, we want to really make sure this appears longer by comparison, because if it doesn't, it just won't read that this leg is foreshortened as much. So you're kind of illustrating this by a comparison. So again, kind of a cylinder shape up here, larger at the top. We all know the upper part of the leg is a lot larger by comparison than the lower part, so we got to illustrate that here. And then I feel like the foot still needs to go back more, so I'm just going to draw it behind this line. So this is just me making decisions on the fly. It doesn't mean they're the right decisions, just slowly tweaking things to see what I see, just making those adjustments. I'll draw a little bit up here. I'm picturing this being a female character. I don't know if you can tell by the way I drew the curve here. With a male, I would draw this a little more angular as it segmented around, so as it connected to the hip. So with the female characters, I'll just tend to use more curvy lines to illustrate that. And as I always say, no offense, ladies, I know there's some of you out there that are very angular and muscular and tough. Just drawing what I normally would draw. And I know there's guys like me that have lots of curves. Kind of a curvy guy. Just kidding. Okay, so now after we've got this kind of, the cylinders in place, and and I can spot some flaws. This line looks a little strange right here in comparison to the way it's connecting. You get like these soft little subtle bends that start to form the anatomy. Things like the leg muscle kind of comes closer to the front of the bone there, and then it tucks back this way. So you start to illustrate some of these, and this is just where studying anatomy comes into play. And then, you get like this. The knee kind of does this. If you're going to over illustrate it, it kind of comes down and V's a little bit right here. But I tend not to draw that because it looks too segmented. But it's good to be aware of these little shapes that you're going to see in the legs. And then, you kind of pick and choose where you want to see it, especially as you start to draw in shadows and things. So now I'm going to soft erase this again. And I guess I could make, let's make another copy. That way it's more of a, I really want people to understand how to stage the work, because I think it's helpful on those days when you're not drawing as well to stage things. And, it's helpful for beginners basically too, when you get more advanced, you do tend to skip steps, but I don't know, I always feel those days where I'm just not doing as well, and I go right back to the basics. So maybe that's not for everybody, but it's kind of how I do it. So now I've got enough information there to kind of start drawing what I consider a little bit more like rope drawing, and just kind of connecting the dots essentially. And then I'll focus a little bit more on line weight and, basically line clarity. And I'm trying to get a little bit more of the, the refinement that I want to see in the illustration. Or a sketch, I should say. I don't know if I would consider this an illustration. And I'll just get in there and doodle. But I'll still change things, So I always stress that in all these videos. Like, I'm never done with it until I'm done with it. So if I can see something that can be a little bit better, I'm going to try to make those changes. I'm not going to settle too early on with what's there in front of me, because it's a lot of the best work, I think, comes out in the details. So you definitely have to work up to it. You got to get all the right information in place to get to those details, but small changes can make a big impact to the work. Definitely see that the more I progress in art, that it's these tiny little things like a bend at the end of the line that makes it look more like skin than just a straight line, and things like that. So I don't think it's anything I could teach you in this video. It just comes with lots and lots of practice. The word that nobody likes to hear. It's like you give somebody that answer and they look at you like you just offended them. What? Practice? Why would I ever? Yeah, it's lots and lots of hard work and repetition, folks. That's what makes a great artist. But hopefully these tips and techniques will help you along the way. So forgive me, my foot will probably come out pretty strange because, nobody likes drawing feet, myself included. They're like one of the more difficult parts of the body. So I'll probably cheat and just throw a little sock, a little booty. We're drawing superheroes usually on this channel anyway, so that's typical for a superhero to have a little cover on their foot. And the ankles, I think, would be right here, but who knows? They move around. Okay, so now the other leg. So that's enough. I mean, this isn't going to be a really rendered style. I'm not going to shade it or nothing like that. I just want to give you the shapes and the build up to that. So let's take this and bring it out. So this is the line I was already seeing that kind of just looked a bit skewed. It just doesn't look as good as I would like it to. So I'm going to try to move these shapes around just a little bit. And I actually think that this line needs to come down. So I think I need to give a little bit more mass to that upper leg. And you can see by comparison over here, from this angle, the lower leg looks larger, but we know, that in fact the upper leg is a lot larger. So I might need to just increase the bend up here. So again, trying to illustrate that those little changes should hopefully make a pretty good difference. We shall see. And I think I need more curve right there. So even though the leg seems pretty straight, there's some muscle there, there's some bend there. So you got to get that subtle, bit of bend in there. And I think, let's just bring this down. Something like that. Some little wrinkles there, just to make it look a little more believable. And then again, we'll illustrate the muscle coming back and pointing back this way. And you can get into all the detailed anatomy, and if you're making a character that's more defined, you're going to get a little bit of this muscle here, maybe some over here, lines down here, but that's going to be a lot more detailed character that I'm going for in this particular one. So I want to just hint to these things, if anything. So maybe a couple little marks or something just to make it look like there's a little bit of detail there, but I don't want to overdo that. Now if I was to shade this, I'm not going to get too off into shading because this is probably already a long video because it's real time, but you would just kind of start drawing in some shapes, so maybe just fight the urge. Let me show you this real quick and I'll finish this video up. Just fight the urge to do this. Not always, but sometimes. You just don't want to do lines like this all throughout. You're going to get a very rounded character. And the anatomy doesn't tend to look as real. You want to try little shapes of shadows that have different kind of angles and bends inside of them. At least that's what I do. I tend to find that if I do that a little bit here and there, it comes out a bit more natural. But yeah, that's just me. So, try that. Take this illustration a step further. Keep in mind too that you can actually use perspective to do your shadows as well. So same thing. Here's your vanishing point in this particular one. So you can use that to figure out where the shadow is going to hit based upon where it passes through the character. But then you would draw your light source up here and you would use perspective lines to figure out where that shadow is going to fall. And then you would have to figure it out. You would mimic the shapes that you see up here and you would align all this together. And that's how you kind of get your shadow. So just play with that. Again, the light source can be anywhere in the scene. Just picture the sun moving around. And you're going to use directional lines, perspective lines to map that out. And then you're going to use the vanishing point to figure out where that is in the scene, actually on the ground plane, I guess. So it's those two combined. So at any rate, I thank you for watching this video. I'll be doing more leg videos because I know legs are tough. They're tough for me. I think the forms here are even a little bit off, but I'll keep doing them. I'll keep getting better. You'll see that process. Hopefully it'll help you to get better. I would love to know what you think in the comments section below, and if you found this video to be helpful, like, share, subscribe, all that jazz. As always, keep drawing, keep having fun, and I will talk to you soon.